Hey everybody, Spaz here. It's time for another episode of But Is It Power Pop? And oh boy, I've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. This is more talking about power pop and power pop adjacent music. So hopefully, if you love a good tune, a good melody, there were plenty of guitars and harmonies and all that kind of stuff, then this is going to be a great episode for you. We're going to start off with the brand new album from the Bobbleheads, Myths and Fables. This is stellar from start to finish. They've been building their career over the last couple years. Lead singer John Ashfield has this voice that kind of reminds me of Martin Rossiter from Gene, if anybody remembers them, singing just crisp, clear, great power pop songs with better harmonies behind it. It doesn't sound like Gene at all. And I know probably I'm throwing people off by even mentioning Martin Rossiter from Gene, but he's got maybe that range and that power. But Bobbleheads, just the songs are just incredible. There's more harmonies on this record than before. The songs hook you in immediately. Is it power pop? It's not power pop. It is like power pop. It is power pop adjacent, but it's melodic from start to finish. A lot of great songs. I Really See You is the first single off the album. So it's definitely a band to check out. That is the Bobbleheads, Myths and Fables. You got to check that out. A couple episodes back, I talked about the brand new album from Everet, Almond. He's all over the map. It goes anywhere from maybe a touch of mellower replacements to just glorious McCartney-esque pop and everything in between. He had a new album out in 2018 and it was self-titled. It was in my top 40 list of albums. But Cool Cat Music has also released two other Everet Almond albums. These were actually earlier things that compiled some of his digital-only EPs and demos and stuff. And it's definitely worth your time. The same, there's sometimes a little bit of Neil Finn in there, sometimes McCartney, sometimes, it's great indie pop. Is it power pop? Some of it is, but some of it's, I don't want to say Americana or rootsy, but his musical palette is all over the map, so it's really fun to listen to his albums. Sometimes the songs are in big bold stereo and sometimes they're tight compressed mono, but really fun to listen to. This next band really blew my mind way back when. It's the Housemartins. Does anybody remember the Housemartins? Yes, of course. The Housemartins turned in a couple of the members from the beautiful South, and of course Paul Heaton has gone on to other things as well. But this is their debut album, London Zero, Hole 4. Is it power pop? It's not power pop. It's not punk. It's not soul. It's kind of like everything in between. This is the deluxe edition. You should definitely, if you want to know what they're like and you haven't heard before, check out something like the song Happy Hour or Flag Day or Sheep or something. It's very melodic. In fact, this gentleman here who plays bass is also known now as Fatboy Slim. He's doing dance music. This is far from dance music. This is just great hook-filled pop. But they're all over the. They do a great take on soul music as well. They'll do like slow Bill Withersy kind of songs as well as upbeat, jangly guitar pop. And maybe that was their downfall in the U.S. is because you couldn't pinpoint them. And that's what I like about a band is when you can't really nail down their style because they're all over the map because they try so many different things. Here is another Housemartins here. It's called Now That's What I Call Quite Good, which is a best of. And that features stuff off of their two albums plus some B-sides, and I think there might be a radio session or two on there. But that's the Housemartins. Definitely check out the Housemartins. Dee Walker. Anybody remember Mari Wilson? Just What I Always Wanted. She was, in the 80s. She had the big beehive hairdo. She wasn't the girl from B-52s. But Dee Walker is like Mari Wilson in the fact that it's very girl group sound. Just straight ahead, punchy, melodic, great songwriting, courtesy of like Paul Beauvoir. She was involved with like the Jet Set and that whole scene. This is a little hard to get, but jump back, do a search for Dee Walker Jump Back, And this is the CD. It pretty much compiles, I think, everything she recorded. She wasn't around for that long, just enough to record these tracks, and that was it. But it's a whole lot of fun, and it's just really nice to listen to. Here's another great new album that I want to tell you about. It is the new album from Vanilla, Mythic Knights of Tacoma. And boy, Jason Jarman, one of the main guys from Vanilla, he used to be in Liars Club. And if anybody remembers some of their stuff, very XTC influenced and squeeze and power pop and stuff, but they were more of a 90s rock-ish type band. This here, all the stuff I talked about before is there, but there's also a little bit of Prefab Sprout. There's a little bit of Bacharach and David. It's kind of like taking little bits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and some 90s, mixing it all together and just laying it straight out on an album. It's a lot of great songs on this, and of course the artwork is wonderful. If everybody knows, I'm a comic book fan, so something like that is going to excite the heck out of me. So definitely check out the new Vanilla album, Mystic Knights of Tacoma. I may have said Mythic before, but I just misspoke. Anyway, I just want to show you this again. This is one I always talk about. First Lambrettas album, Beat Boys in the Jet Age. I just want to remind you to go check that out. And buy the 2 CD version that came out in Salvo, because it has a quote from me on the back. What an honor to have one of my favorite albums, and without even me knowing it, they reissued this on CD, and they took a quote from me, and that was such an honor. But the Lambrettas, fantastic. But remember Ian Gomm? That's right. This album was known as Gomm with the Wind here in the U.S., but here it is. This is the original. Summer Holiday was the original title when it came out in England, but they've used the American cover with the British title. Big song on this was a song called Hold On, which, Ian was in Brinsley Schwarz alongside Nick Lowe, and of course the rest of the band. So it was kind of like Brinsley Schwarz. There was Ian Gomm, Nick Lowe, and then the other guys went off and backed Graham Parker as the rumor. So that's always fun to check out all this stuff. And very similar to Nick Lowe. I don't want to say he sounds just like Nick Lowe, but he comes from the same mind space in terms of songwriting and influences. So there's a lot of melodies, but there's also a lot of nods to the great history of rock and roll, the 50s, 60s, etc. He's got some other albums out too, What a Blow and Village Voice. He's got even more out than this, but these are like the first 3, and I highly recommend it. There's also a Cherry Red compilation called Hold On, that you may want to check out. Once again, that is Ian Gomm, Gomm, Ian Gomm. Let's talk about Britpop. Midget were kind of Britpop, but they were also, they turned up the amps a little bit. They weren't quite grunge, but this album here is just chock full of great tunes. And this was their debut American album, Invisible Balloon. The first track is just mind-blowingly wonderful. They did have other releases, but the other releases are a little bit hard to find. Lost Word there. So these are the Midget titles, but this one here is the one that you really need to track down. Is it power pop? Some of the songs can be really power poppy, maybe along the lines of Silver Sun a little bit, maybe leaning towards maybe a little more grungy than that, but it's not all like that. But there are songs that just really sound like it was power pop, and then they thought, oh, Nirvana's popular, so let's bash out a few songs with those types of arrangements. Next up, got a band called the Holy Toledos. This album here was the only domestic album. It's called Blood, and they're a New Zealand band. A lot of this sounds like, in fact, maybe the first half of the album sounds like it could be like Neil Finn in a slightly punkier mood, slightly more upbeat mood, not as not as layered as some of the Crowded House stuff got. But a lot of this is just great immediate pop, great vocals, great hooks. Definitely check that out. Here's an earlier album from them. This is one that was on released only in New Zealand. And this is more kind of closer to Flying Nun than this would be, or Flying Nun the label. So it's a lot more indie, a little dirtier, but definitely Blood would be an album. If you're going through your used bins, definitely check that out. Dirty Looks put out 2 albums on Stiff Records. First album, self-titled, is just absolutely wonderful. Is it power pop? A lot of it really is. And they have just a great power, great songwriter in Patrick Barnes, great hooks. Not everything sounds the same. They're a trio. They don't sound like The Jam or anything like that, but they're kind of like that, where they make the most out of a trio format, and not every song is produced the same. But it's just jam-packed full of hooks. Second album here wasn't as good, but if you find this 2 CD set, you're definitely going to want to check it out. I believe that this one, maybe they've both been available separately, but definitely the first album was available separately on its own for a while. But you're definitely going to want to check out this, because just that first disc alone makes it worth it. I used to listen to that when I'd get up to go to school, and I'd be done getting ready, and I'd wait for my buddy to come over, so I'd put the headphones on and just listen to as much as the album as I could before he showed up, and interrupted my listening. And the Domestic album, by the way, is a different album cover, but it's still fantastic. Finally, last thing I'm going to talk about. But is it power pop? Haircut 100. It's not power pop, but oh gosh, such a great album. I don't know if you've ever heard this. This is the Cherry Red version, 2 CD set. Fantastic, great pop. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is the second Haircut 100 album. Is it power pop? No, it's not, but it's great. It's fantastic. It was recorded after Nick Heyward left, but it's got a bunch of great songs on it, 2 CD set. Is that what I wanted to talk about? No, not necessarily. And I didn't want to talk about Nick Heyward's first solo album, North of a Miracle 2, although that's great pop with bonus tracks. I like to thank Cherry Red for all that. Then there's another Nick Heyward album, but I didn't want to talk about that one either, even though that's a great album, Postcards from Home. I Love You Avenue is another great Nick Heyward album. That's just the normal, no bonus tracks. And but is this what I want to talk about? No, this is a best of Nick Heyward, and Haircut 100 covers all the stuff that I've gone through already. No, the stuff I wanted to talk about was the next 4 releases. Nick Heyward took a long sabbatical after his pop career sort of died down a little bit. He came back strong on the Creation Records label with this album, From Monday to Sunday. And it is pure Britpop, guitar-fueled, heavy thumping, wonderful, great melodies, great harmonies, great songwriting. This is the Cherry Red version with bonus tracks. And boy, this is just absolutely fantastic. And he followed that up with the Apple Bed and Tangled. These are both more glorious pop hits. There's Tangled with bonus tracks. You can see them there. And then there's the Apple Bed with even more bonus tracks, if you can see them there. Those might be difficult to track down in the Cherry Red form because they might be out of print, but you still might be able to find the original Creation versions if you just want to get them on CD, but still look for the ones with the bonus tracks. And then, of course, there's Woodland Echoes, which is his album that came out about 2 years ago, and this is more of the same. Just great songwriting, maybe a little bit more acoustic than these, a little bit less Britpop, but still absolutely wonderful, stellar songwriting. You don't expect anything less from Nick Heyward. And this has this version here is the little limited edition book version. It's got a bonus disc with a couple bonus tracks, but it's got Nick Heyward's autograph on it, so now I can pretend I'm his buddy. Hey Nick, what's up? Thanks. But anyway, that's it. I've got tons more stuff to talk about, but I just wanted to get a quick quick short video out to you and share some great music with you, because the new Bobbleheads and the new Vanilla albums, they're both out and you should track them down, and all this other stuff that I've talked about. I hope it inspires you to go, hey, I'm going to go out and buy that. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out for a little while and listening to me jibber jabber. I appreciate it. Smell you later.